Welcome to Fantasy Football Weekly. I'm your host, Jonathan Kriegel. This week I've got some quarterback rankings, some wide receiver rankings. I want to go over the injury report. I want to talk about the Jaguars and how bad they've been. And the Patriots, they're not dead yet, and there's some fantasy players you might want on that team. And let's start with the quarterback rankings. Up top, there's some obvious names: Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers. But one name I'd like to talk about is Philip Rivers. He's been really good over the first 5 weeks of the fantasy season. And I think he'll lead your team to the playoffs if you got him, because you probably got him a little later. And I think he's a top 10 quarterback for the rest of the year. He had a great year last year, and he's been on the up and up. Another game I really like this week is the Bears-Falcons game. You've got Jay Cutler, Matt Ryan. I expect them both to do very well. 2 to 3 touchdowns each. And you have to like the matchups. Both defenses haven't been very good so far, and you have to expect points to be scored by those teams. And then I have Ben Roethlisberger. He just sneaks in the top 10. I had Andrew Luck in my top 3, but Thursday night game, and he did good, like I thought he would do. But Ben Roethlisberger is now up there in top 10. If you've got him, it's a pretty nice play against the Browns this week. And Antonio Brown's been really great. So you have to be pretty happy if you're a Ben Roethlisberger owner. Now let's transition from those quarterbacks to the wide receivers. At number 1, I have Antonio Brown. He's been Roethlisberger's number 1 target. He's the number 1 fantasy receiver. You might not know that, but he's been good, and he'll continue to probably be good against the Browns. At number 5, I have A.J. Green. He's been injured all year. Well, not all year, but for over half of the year so far. And he might not crack the top 10 in just rankings right now, but his overall has been very good when he's been playing, and he's a top 5 receiver. Steve Smith, I like that matchup. He wasn't very good last week, but before that he had a bunch of great games. He's playing the Buccaneers, the 3rd worst pass defense. You gotta think he's gonna have another good game. And then at 10, I have Golden Tate. Calvin Johnson might be injured this week, so you have to think Golden Tate's gonna be the number 1 target. They pass a lot. Stafford's a pretty good quarterback. Gotta think Golden Tate's going to get the ball and probably get a touchdown. Alright, now I want to talk about the Jaguars and show you how bad they've really been this year. The Jacksonville Jaguars are just not a very good team. They don't have enough talent. In fantasy points against, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, defense, they're in the top 5. This week the Tennessee Titans are playing them. If you got any Titans, you might want to start them. Not many of them really are startable most weeks. Delaney Walker's pretty good at tight end. I've got him on my team. I'm starting him. I'm pretty happy that he's going to play a pretty bad defensive team. From here on out, you have to think if there's a team playing the Jaguars, they'll probably score plenty of fantasy points for you. Now let's transition to a team that was doing bad but's been playing a little better recently, and that's the New England Patriots. Tom Brady had 292 yards last week and 2 touchdowns. After having a pretty miserable start, they weren't looking very good. I think Tom Brady still got some fantasy life left in him. I don't think he's a every week starter, but he's like a number 2. If you're in a 2 quarterback league, you might want to have him at your number 2. Depending on the matchup, he could be solid. Rob Gronkowski, he had a good week, 100 yards and a touchdown. And Julian Edelman wasn't very good, but he has been good, and he's pretty much their only wide receiver. And besides Gronkowski and this other tight end, Timothy Wright, he doesn't have many targets to begin with, so you have to think Julian Edelman will have some good weeks in him. Now, Timothy Wright, I do like him. You never know, because Bill Belichick might not have him as a go-to target for Tom, but if he does, he could be very good for you. When the Patriots had Gronkowski and Hernandez, they used both of those tight ends very well, and they were better than the receivers were. And if Timothy Wright could be the next, well, not as criminal as Hernandez, but as good as he was, he might be a nice play for you if you need a tight end. Wouldn't probably start him at flex because tight ends aren't very good flex starters. but you can start him at your tight end spot and be happy about it. Now, let's go to the injury report. First off, Monte Ball suffered a groin injury. He's going to be out for a while. Reggie Bush suffered an ankle injury. He says he feels great, but you never know. Rashad Jennings suffered a knee injury, and I would suggest pick up Andre Williams. Rashad Jennings has been really good. Andre Williams did good in his place, and he's going to be a pretty good running back for the short term that Rashad Jennings is out. Calvin Johnson re-aggravated his ankle injury. He didn't return, and it's not looking good for him to return in Week 6. Golden Tate, great replacement for him. And then Jimmy Graham suffered a shoulder injury. He came back, but left again during the game, and it doesn't seem to be too serious. And if he's playing, you're starting him. That's all I have for this week. Next week I have some running back rankings, some defensive rankings. Also, I want to talk about Week 7, what players to pick up, and much more. Tune in next week for your next installment of Fantasy Football Weekly.